All right, let's bring in Mike Decourcy. You'd be hard-pressed to find someone in the media who has this guy's resume when it comes to covering college basketball. I've known him for a long time. He's great at what he does. He's been doing it almost 40 years, member of the U.S. Basketball Writers Hall of Fame, works for the Big Ten Network, and is our bracketologist here at Fox. All right, Mike, Illinois was almost a double-digit underdog tonight going into this game, so there weren't many who expected the Illini to win. Will the loss to Duke factor at all into your projections and seeding for the Fighting Illini?
Well, it won't punish them. It's just an opportunity missed. That's really what it is for Illinois. Now, unfortunately for the Illini, opportunities missed are somewhat of a defining character for their season. It's not to say they're not having a good year, but they could have had a great year to this point. They had Tennessee at home, and they really were close to having them beaten and couldn't pull it off. They were ahead against Michigan State at home and couldn't hold on. They played Michigan State on the road very competitively. Games like that ultimately have been the deciding factor in where Illinois stands on the season. I look at them as a borderline 7-8 seed right now, and there's a big difference between the 7 seed and the 8 seed, because if you play an 8-9 game, which the Illini did not long ago, that first game is absolutely brutal because it's two evenly matched teams. And then the second game, if you're fortunate enough to win the first, is against one of the 4 best teams in the tournament. So playing to the 7 line or higher is what the Illini want, and missing the opportunity to defeat Duke certainly doesn't help that cause.
Mike, is Illinois' biggest issue, other than its health, and we know what they've gone through health-wise for the last 3-4 weeks, is it their youth?
Yeah, absolutely, Lou. Because I don't like to blame mistakes on youth, but it's young players making mistakes. So you have to look at that as a factor for them. Freshmen, players who haven't been through this before, haven't been through this many games at this high a level. And at times, especially late, you see, whether it's fatigue or game pressure, you've seen over the course of time, Will Riley take some difficult shots down the stretch on the road at Rutgers. You saw Yakichonis make some mistakes in that Tennessee game. So there have been some youthful mistakes made by this team. And one of the things that Illinois has to feel good about is that when they get through the regular season, they'll have had all the experiences, and they'll know what not to do and what to do when they get to the single elimination tournaments at the Big Ten and the NCAA level.
All right, if that's the case, then because they've got so much talent, are they capable of going on a deep run come tournament time?
Absolutely. As long as they're healthy and whole, it's a team that absolutely has Final Four talent. And there won't be anybody that'll be excited about having the Illini as their 6 or 7 or 8 seed wherever they wind up. Nobody will be excited about that on the other side of the floor. The Illini's talent. Riley is such a creator, a big wing who can do a lot of different things with the basketball. Yakichonis is a NBA point guard, just needs that experience and that belief in himself and the understanding of what to do and what not to do. And so they've got so much of that sort of ability. They miss some guys on the inside health-wise, and with the illness earlier and now the injury, that's made a big difference in what they're capable of doing on the inside. But on the perimeter, they're as gifted as any team in the country.
Mike, we had a chance to watch Duke's Cooper Flagg tonight. Number one, do you have him as the top pick in the NBA draft come June? And number two, how good of a pro do you think he'll be?
I think he's going to be an outstanding pro, Lou. I first saw Cooper when he played for the U17 national team in the World Cup. He was only 15 at the time. He was the 4th leading scorer on that gold medal team and clearly the best player. I said that I believe that he's the best American prospect to enter college basketball since at least Anthony Davis, if not going all the way back to LeBron James. I hate to put that much on him because those are some really big names, but he has everything. He has the dynamism, he has the skill, he has the competitive fire, and he doesn't have a need to score to prove to you how good he is. He'll prove to you how good he is by making every right play and then beating your team.
Mike, Michigan State won big last night, 75-62 in Ann Arbor. The win moves the Spartans ahead of the Wolverines now in the first place in the Big Ten. Michigan State was not supposed to be 22-5 at this point and ranked 14th in the country. How are they doing it?
They're doing it in every way that one can do it, Lou. They have a rotation of about 10 players. And what's fascinating about that is that you never know, and the opponents never know. And honestly, Tom Izzo has acknowledged that he doesn't ever know who is going to play the most minutes or the least minutes from night to night. They go into a game with a plan of how the game will go, but in the occasion where a particular player isn't playing well or doesn't rise to that matchup in the way that Izzo hopes, just try something different. And whatever works is what he rides with. And it's been a fascinating thing because, one, it's not easy to do that now with so many players concerned about their current NIL circumstance, their future NIL circumstance, and obviously their NBA and professional basketball futures. To get guys to buy into, you might play 12 minutes tonight and 28 tomorrow is not an easy thing. But if there's anybody in college basketball that can do it, I guess it's Tom Izzo. He's having an amazing season. The Spartans being first in this Big Ten, really competitive league, headed at this point for 10 NCAA tournament bids. A really nice performance by the Spartans.
Mike, amazing season, amazing career for Tom Izzo. So you've got Michigan State, top of the Big Ten right now, 13-3. Michigan right behind, 12-3, followed by Maryland, Wisconsin, and Purdue. Two-part question for you. Number one, who does Mike Decourcy think is the best team in the conference today? And the second question is, which team has the best chance to make a deep run in the tournament?
Well, I thought that maybe the best team was Wisconsin, but losing at home to Oregon maybe erased that a little bit. It's really hard to pick among them because they all have really significant strengths and then some nagging weaknesses or concerns that make it hard to understand where they'll go. I think the team that has been the most consistent has been Michigan State. They had that one tough streak, lost a few in a row, but for the most part have been consistent winners and have won in difficult circumstances. So I think you'd have to say that they're having the best season. As far as March is concerned, Wisconsin is not what they've been. They are more versatile offensively than they've been perhaps going back to the 2014 and 15 teams that made the Final Four. It's been that long since they've had a team that could do as many things as this team can do. And so I think they'll do well in March. I really like Michigan, but I think they're going to have to defend better. And that's the one thing that I worry about with the Wolverines. Having a player like Danny Wolf is going to unsettle a lot of opponents. A 7-footer who's as creative as he is a massive asset for the Wolverines, but they're going to have to guard better. They couldn't find a way to keep Michigan State out of the lane. And as good as Michigan State is at that, and they're terrific at it, there are teams better at that out there in the rest of the world, in the SEC in particular, that will be more difficult even than the Spartans were for Michigan. So they've got to find some answers on that end.
Mike Decourcy is a great follow on social media. You need to follow him as we come up to tournament time. Also, terrific work on the Big Ten Network. Mike, I've seen you project 10 Big Ten teams getting into the NCAA tournament. I look at this past week. Man, Ohio State did not do itself any favors against Northwestern, did they?
They did not. That's a really punishing loss. It's interesting because I looked at the fact that they were 4 games over 500 coming in. And we've only had 2 teams in the history of the NCAA tournament that have made it as at-large selections standing at 2 games over 500. So putting yourself where the Buckeyes did with that loss, put them 1 game away from that and trying to basically make history. I'm not sure whether or not their season stands up to the standards of 91 Villanova and 2001 Georgia. They had much more powerful victories on their resume than this team at Ohio State does. So they really need to hustle down the stretch, and they've got 3 of their final 4 on the road. So it's really problematic for them. Win them, or at least half, if not 3 of the 4, and they'll be absolutely fine. But if they win less than half, they've got problems.
Mike, ESPN's reporting that the NCAA is weighing the idea of expanding the NCAA tournament to 76 teams. And I saw where you do not like this idea. Number one, why? And do you like the number as it is right now at 68, or would like to go back to 64 teams?
I think at 68, we've now accommodated pretty much everybody that's qualified to make it. I've been doing the brackets for Fox Sports. This is my 6th season, obviously only the 5th tournament because my first year was the 2020 season when they didn't have a tournament because of COVID. But I've never felt in any of those 6 years that the team that was outside the field belonged in the tournament, that they had to be there. I've never seen, since I started doing this, the committee exclude a team that absolutely should be in the field. It's always been, okay, this is the best of the least qualified. And that's not a need to put 4 or 8 more teams into the field. It doesn't make the tournament better. People aren't clamoring for it. The public doesn't want it. On balance, there are probably a few out there that do, but on balance, the committee does not want. The college basketball community doesn't want it. And really, I don't think the television networks want it either. It's just a few conferences clamoring for greater access. Look, the SEC, which has been leading this charge, is likely to get 13 teams into the field. There are only 16 teams in the league. There's just only, how much more can you get? Can you get 18 out of 16? I don't think so. The SEC should be happy with the way this is going. I don't think that you need to go longer with the field to make them happy. This is a great event. It would take away from this event a little bit, but it would really take away from the regular season. Where would the suspense be, Lou, if teams like North Carolina, which at this point is 1-10 in what we call quadrant 1 games, which are the most difficult games on your schedule. They've won less than 10% of their toughest games, and they would be in the field fairly comfortably if we went to 76. I don't see how that makes anything better.
No, it doesn't. Final question, last 30 seconds, because I know I want to let you run. You've spent a great deal of time with us, and we appreciate it. Give me the best team in the country right now, according to Mike Decourcy on February 22nd.
Yeah, it's Auburn. Auburn's having a wonderful season and a truly amazing season. What they've done, lost at home against Florida and on the road to Duke, both right now in position to be 1 seeds, and partly because they both have victories over Auburn. That's an achievement in this year. They're deep. They are unselfish. They have one of the best players in the country in Johni Broome. He's either 1 or 1A, depending on how you look at it with him and Cooper Flagg. They're just having an outstanding year. What's interesting about this Auburn team is that they don't really have a defining point guard. And every champion that we've had going back decades has a player at that position that's been in charge. They rotate guys at that position. They have 2 players averaging about 25 minutes, maybe a little less than that at the point guard spot. The leading assist guy on their team is Johni Broome, who is a power forward. An All-American, a terrific player, but if you're being led in assists by your power forward, you're different. And so they would have to break some standards to win the national championship, but I won't be surprised if they do.
Yeah, Bruce Pearl's done a terrific job, as have you. Thanks so much for the time, and you need to promise me you'll join me again to give me your prediction of who's going to cut down the nets, all right?
Anytime for you, Lou, absolutely.